so yellow. Yes, sir. Is your skin, oh yeah, your skin goes turning to something beautiful. You know I love you so. You know I love you so. I swam across.
There we are. Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, podcast fans of all ages. I'm Dave Valente, joining you from my phone tonight. This is the Political Deep Dive. Thank you for joining us, and we are doing a show on a topic I think is very passionate for all of us involved. We all have passionate opinions about it, so we were talking about Israel and Palestine tonight. As you can tell, I'm joining you from a different angle because my cell phone, my internet coverage has decided to go ass up tonight. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with that.
So far,
Interesting
so
times.
I'm pretty convinced that we will have such lengthy monologues that you will have plenty of opportunity to try to reconnect in a variety of different.
Oh, I'm still trying to reconnect. Computers back here on the other side here, but yeah, hopefully my phone will hold out. But we'll see how everything goes. Anyway, so tonight we're going to do things a little bit differently, and Dan, I'm going to have you in charge of the comments tonight because
Okay.
I can't see crap. So
I am not admin in here. I don't know why, but
I don't know why either.
So we're
but
flying without a net.
I did log in with my let.live account, which is the one supposed to be admin, but for whatever reason, I think we're gonna have to examine that later. But I will keep track of the comments, and I will thank people like Craig and Dr. Bolton and other people who are showing up to comment, and I will be sure to make sure that we plug all the penis enlargers and Russian mail order brides
Heck
who are
yeah,
advertising themselves on the on
yeah,
this.
absolutely. I mean, we need the ad revenue.
Yeah, and let's thank you, Craig, for asking us to do this. We want to be a responsive show.
Yeah.
As we start to get bigger, those of you who are, were our first listeners, you're not going to get lost. We're always going to honor your stuff and promote your content. So, this show is as much yours as it is ours. So, I think we're ready to go. Dave, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so we're going to be doing tonight's episode a little bit differently than we do our normal shows. We're going to talk, we're going to do like, everyone's going to get a chance to kind of lay out what is their, oh my God, I think I might have reconnected, but we'll see in a sec. Well, everyone's going to get a chance to lay out their beliefs when it comes to the Israel-Palestine conflict, what they believe the ideal solution is. Moving forward, and from there we'll get into a healthy debate about what
I feel
what
pretty
we're
confident
doing.
we're going to solve it.
I think so. We should. But anyway, so I will let let's start with Joe. Joe, give me 2 minutes. No one else, please let Joe have the floor. No interruptions or anything.
Well, okay. I'm really, I was intrigued by this. I wasn't sure how to address it, how to proceed, so I just figured I'd go. And is there should be a simple solution. There truly should. It shouldn't be difficult. And yet, I'm just thinking about myself since like 1975. I just attended my 50th class reunion last evening, and 1975 seems like it was yesterday, but dang, I'm not 18 anymore. And I've watched different presidents, different Congresses, different Israeli leaders over the years. And I specifically remember Jimmy Carter's greatest accomplishment, and that was the Camp David Peace Accords, where he brought Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat together. That famous picture where they're all shaking hands. It cost Sadat his life. But here, these gentlemen were working hard to make a lasting peace. And my approach to this is the following. And when I say there's no simple solution, I'm the first to admit I've never really understood the depth of the problem. I look at it this way. I have watched and been amazed my whole life where the Jews get blamed for everything. They get blamed if they want a piece of real estate on this globe. They get blamed if they're successful economically, financially. They seem like they get blamed for everything, and I've never understood it. And I know it goes back even long before this past 50 years I mentioned. It goes back biblically, and I've always thought, why do people hate the Jews so much? And I mean, there's no logical, reasonable basis for it. And you would think, sometimes I look at it in oversimplified terms, but then I think, nah, not really. We ought to have a Rodney King moment where we just say, damn it, can't we all get along? But I know I'm oversimplifying it. So do I have a solution? No. Am I frustrated with it? Yeah. We've seen so many cycles where there's a ceasefire and they appear to be getting along and everything's great. And all of a sudden it just unravels overnight.
You got 10 seconds.
Okay. Well, anyway, I have found it to be mind-boggling. I don't understand it. I could say a lot more of my own thoughts personally, but that's it. If you want to interrupt me and throw something in now, do it.
Actually, we'll move on to Ari.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Perfectly.
Okay. So, my viewpoint is more complicated. Israel exists. It's not going to be going away. Parties that have been in power, it's had some that have tried to be able to achieve peace, and some, like the current one, which is an impediment towards it. My viewpoint on Likud and Net is not very positive. I think he's mismanaged this war. I think there has been incident. The IDF has done some things that are very wrong, but on the other hand, the war would very much not be where it is if Hamas was not a threat. Hamas is not legitimate resistance. It's not a legitimate government. It is a terrorist organization, purposely targets Israelis, specifically targets Israeli Jews. October the 7th was to those over 1,000 people and the hostages that they have kept and killed. And for who has any trigger warnings, this is going to be one for the perpetrated Israelis, but not just, but Palestinians as well, is unconscionable.
You got 10 seconds.
Hamas needs to be dealt with. Hamas needs to not be in control of Gaza. I am a full supporter of the two-state solution.
Okay. That's time, and we'll go with Dan.
So I'll head off on that one.
Dan, you're on mute. I'm going to take this away from
All
you.
right,
2
now I'm
minutes.
not muted.
There you go.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm good.
I figured I might say things inadvertently, and so I'm like, I better mute myself. But please don't start my clock till now. So I think one of the things that's really critical to remember when we talk about this is that both Israel and anti-Israel forces are fighting two wars. They're fighting the physical war, but they're also fighting a war of public opinion. And lies are absolutely ammunition in that war. In order for there to be a resolution in that part of it, we have to find a way to get to facts that we can agree upon. And so I'm hopefully going to lay out 4 facts that we can agree upon as a beginning spot. The first one is pretty simple. The Jewish people have lived in the land of Israel for about 3,000 years. This is not a colonial project. It's not a foreign occupation. It's a return of the diaspora to rejoin relatives who have continuously lived in Israel. I can get into the correlation between the biblical and historical evidence if people want to know about it. But the biblical stuff is, whatever. But the historical evidence is very strong. The second fact is in 1947, the United Nations voted to establish 2 states, one Jewish and one Arab. The Jewish community accepted it. The Arab world did not accept it. And on the day that the state of Israel came into existence, all the Arab nations declared war upon Israel. Every inch of territory that Israel controls now, beyond the original border, was gained in wars that Israel did not start. You'll hear Palestinians refer to the Nakba when they lost the territory that was supposed to be given to them under the agreement that they did not accept. But that territory was conquered by the Israeli army in response to the invasion of the Arabs. It wasn't a war of aggression.
Yeah, 10
Now,
seconds.
today, Hamas, which governs Gaza and Iran, has openly declared their goal, not peace, coexistence, but the elimination of Israel. That's not rhetoric. We can't get anywhere until Hamas ends its declared war on Israel, which has to happen via an unconditional surrender.
All right. So here's where I'm at. When it comes to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, when it comes to the leadership, especially to the states, I guess you could say, is that this is essentially porn. There are no good actors. Netanyahu. Quite honestly, I think Netanyahu and whoever the flavor of the month is for Hamas need to be up on war crimes trials for what's going on. The October 7th, invasion was absolutely horrible. But I'm also very much convinced that the October 7th invasion was a coordinated effort with Hamas, Iran, and Russia. Russia provided the operational intelligence to achieve that because it was well beyond anything that even Iran as a state actor has pulled off in the past. And seeing what has happened in Ukraine, the same types of insurgent actions that the Russians have done there, we're seeing the same. It further convinces me that this has happened. The other thing that I believe when it comes to this whole thing is not only should there be a 2-state solution, but possibly a 3-state solution. Yes, Dan, I do agree that we need to have the Hamas unconditionally surrender, and Gaza does not need to be under the control of Hamas. But either a Palestinian Authority that governs both sides, or you have an independent West Bank, independent Gaza, or they're absorbed into patron states such as, Gaza. Egypt would take Gaza, Jordan would take the West Bank. There's not really much appetite for that, but those are possible solutions I see to the whole thing. The Israelis need to stop with the taking of land in the West Bank, and I know that they pushed them out of Gaza, but they continue to take more and more land in the West Bank. And the humanitarian crisis of what's going on in Israel or in Gaza right now is a stain on humanity. It's a stain on Israel. It's a stain on Hamas. It is when you're attacking people that are queuing up for food, that's a war crime to me. When you're taking and destroying food aid, whether that is Hamas or Israel, from starving people, that is a war crime and needs to be treated as such. So for me, I'm not a fan of anybody in a power position in Israel, and I think that there is a growing number, and I think a vast majority of people on both sides of the issue that really just want things to stabilize. Even people who have who have family members that are hostages have talked about ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, coming to some sort of peace agreement. What that looks like, again, I know that we're people are debating that. I'm sorry, everything kind of rocks every once in a while. I keep hitting this thing, and the arm is kind of bouncy. But anyway, let's open the floor. It looks like we lost Ari, but hopefully she can or he can rejoin us
I think
soon.
they'll reconnect.
Yeah.
I do think that there is, this is something that never gets solved when we try to solve the whole problem. And if you think of the solutions that have happened, Egypt is at peace with Israel. Jordan is at peace with Israel. And this is important to remember because Egypt controlled Gaza. Gaza was part of Egypt. The West Bank was part of Jordan. Those pieces can be made. However, Hamas has a declared state of war against Israel. Until that state of war is over, the humanitarian crisis can't end. And so everybody who's not calling for the end of that war is continuing this humanitarian crisis. Hamas is still fighting because of all the people who say there should be a ceasefire right now. Because that's a victory for Hamas. Hamas's victory is to not surrender.
And the heck of it is, when you say that, that tells me Hamas does not care a damn about its own people.
No, clearly they don't. They care about power. I mean, I would say that if you ask most people in the world what the most shocking thing about the Israeli response is, it's not that it happened, but it's actually been as restrained as it has been.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of debate, and we're not going to agree on the facts of the number of Palestinian casualties. We can certainly agree that there is a humanitarian crisis happening in Gaza right now, and there is more than enough will and food to deliver all of that aid into Gaza.
Well,
and let me point out that if they wanted to, the Egyptians could be delivering all this food right now. They have a border with Gaza.
And during the conflict, you think about all the airdrops of humanitarian supplies, food that were being made daily, from what I remember.
Yes.
It makes me wonder, whose hands did it fall into? Was it distributed? Did it really help? It's
one of the larger issues, and the internet troubles, just like Dave here. One of the troubles that they've been running into, and that's been kind of glossed over, is that there has been several of the caravans for food that have been stolen. Whether or not it's Hamas, it's not clear. Some people say it is. mostly Jews and Israelis, and others, mostly from the Western media, are painting it that it's not a systemic problem. So food is getting there. I completely agree with this point. I don't know what else has been said previously, but yeah, food is coming. The distribution of it is one of the larger strategic issues at this point.
Okay. Cool.
But
Now,
we've also, I mean, let's look at it from this standpoint. You're in a war zone. You're trying to get to food, and it is a, look. Hamas is no. We're not. Nobody here is painting Hamas as angels when it comes to what is going on, because I think from both sides they are shooting at civilians that are trying to get to food stores. Um, the people aren't just starving to starve you know look to make Israel or Hamas look bad. People are starving. That is
Yes.
100% happening. And we, the idea that, well, we, it's, Hamas is stealing aid, that goes on no matter where, what conflict you're talking about. Aid tends to fall into the hands of the people with the guns, and it doesn't mean that we should stop trying to bring aid in there. And Dan, I heard your point about Egypt. Yes, Egypt shares a border with uh, with Gaza, but if Egypt shows up with a ton of trucks trying to get across the Gaza border, Israel's not going to really stand for that. There's been choke
what they should be
points.
doing, what they should be doing is not bringing their trucks in. They should be letting people from Gaza into Egypt, feeding them there, giving them supplies there, and then sending them back in.
Well, the
Not a bad
Israelis let
idea.
them back in now.
I mean, the Israelis
And
don't
there,
control that border right now. The Egyptians.
and remember, there is that historical. I know you referenced it earlier, the Nakba, um, the idea that if you cede, your home, will you be allowed to return? So there's that institutional, so
So,
much of
so,
life,
but
so
this
much
is
of
where
life
the
is about reciprocity and trust, and there's no trust here.
but so but that this is where we're breaking down. You can't say on the one hand there's this huge calamity going on, but we're not willing to accept a solution that saves lives. We're willing to sacrifice the Palestinian children's lives, so because we're not sure about what would happen if they came into Egypt and were fed there.
I'm not saying that it's a bad idea to have them come into Egypt and get their food and aid and things like that. But again, Israel's used a lot of these aid points and congregation points as, and I'm sure Hamas is using them as protection when things, from attack. They think that they'll be protected, essentially using human shields. But I'm just going through the psyche of people who, at one point, their great grandparents fled Jerusalem and went to Gaza while the 48 wars was raging, and were never allowed to return. And that psyche continues to this day. So that, if they say, "Well, I go across the Egyptian border, am I ever going to be able to return to Gaza?" They don't know. So again, it's not saying that this is a bad solution. I actually like the solution of allowing people to go into Egypt and return, um, with, getting food and being able to return, or get, at the very least setting up a massive refugee encampment so that people who want to flee the fighting and get away from the fighting, because right now they're just getting chased up and down the Gaza Strip. Like it's a hot mess.
Right.
Well,
And
the hot mess is contributed by the fact that, like, Hamas has been using them
Human shields.
and their schools and their hospitals and everything as points to be able to attack Israel and to be able to attack Israelis. And, like, it's a difficult thing that, like, this is a war, and it's it's really awful. It's really awful, and we're getting to see it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, 66 days a year. It's been going on for almost 2 years now. It'll be 2 years in October since the stuff with the Nova massacre, by Hamas, and, like, there's failures in stuff with Israel, but a lot of this could be taken care of if Hamas would be willing to actually really legitimately negotiate and give Israel back their dead and the rest of their hostages,
Oh yeah, the
including some of the
hostages.
dead that they've had for over a decade.
Yeah, I mean the hostages have to return. I mean
Yes.
that I don't think anybody is disputing that needed
Oh, no, there's a lot of
prerequisite.
people who are saying they shouldn't return hostages, just not us,
Yeah,
not
which
this
is
group.
yeah, it's
But
just it's
but the thing is too, everybody who's calling for that, who's calling for a ceasefire, everybody who is rewarding Hamas by saying anything else other than return the hostages are encouraging Hamas to not return the hostages. I mean, that's just the simple part about it. And here's the thing: have there been crimes committed by the war crimes committed by the IDF? Absolutely. There's
Yes.
no question about it. War crimes are committed during a war, no matter who's involved. Any war
when I
you
go
go
to
back
Taco
in
Bell.
history, yeah, any war you go back in history, war crimes have been committed by soldiers on both sides. So here's the question: what's the easiest way to stop war crimes from being committed during a war? Stop the war. To answer Yannick's question, do I think we'll stop if the hostages are returned? I know that they won't stop until the hostages are returned. So it's a binary question. The hostages have to be returned. As to whether or not this is a genocide, not only is it not a genocide, anybody who calls it a genocide is anti Semitic because they are applying their standard of what is a genocide to only Israel. So, first of all, the word genocide has a very specific meaning. And if you have to change the meaning of the word so that now one group of people, it applies to them, then that's a problem. The genocide that has happened in the world, there have been 4 genocides recognized by the UN. There have been 4 genocides that have been recognized by the UN. Israel, the Holocaust, Srebrenica, the
Armenians.
not the Armenians hasn't been recognized yet.
Oh yeah,
No, it
because
hasn't.
Turks
Yeah.
would lose their
Are the
shit. Yeah.
holdout. Yeah.
The Houthis
How about Pol Pot?
and I don't
Yeah,
think
the one in Rwanda,
Rwanda,
and
right? That's yeah. And the important part about genocide is that genocide is defined by the UN. Sorry, my chickens are causing me a nightmare right now. Genocide is defined by the UN with a very specific thing that says intent. Your intent has to be to kill the genopart, all the people who are genetically of a type. There are more Israeli Arab citizens. There are more Arabs who are citizens of Israel than there are Jews alive in all of Europe combined. Think about that.
Say that again.
There are more Arab citizens of Israel than there are Jews alive in all of Europe combined. So there used to be a thriving Jewish community in Europe, right? You think about it, everybody talks about what the Jewish life was like, all these iterations. And yet now, in all of Europe combined, there are less Jews alive than there are Arab citizens in Israel. That is a mind-boggling statistic. You're talking about big countries. And when I say Europe, I include England as well. So huge countries: Spain, France, Germany, Italy, England, Poland, Russia. combined, their Jewish population is less than the Arab citizen population. So Arabs have it pretty good in Israel. Now there are certainly people who will say it's a two-state solution even in Israel. And there's a difference in your level of citizenship between if you are Israeli or if you're Arab. But fundamentally, there are lots of Arabs who choose to be citizens of Israel, who participate in the government. And because it's a democracy, in the long run, they're going to control Israel because they are reproducing, their population is increasing faster than the native Jewish population is increasing.
But
Because
I mean, the way
Yeah,
that the
we just
government is
ended up
set up.
we just
But-
ended up getting back to pre-World War II populations for all of the Jewish population worldwide. We're at 16.6 million, and it used to be 16.1 million before the Shoah. But yeah, Dan I think is completely right here. Like there's people who have chosen to be able to become Israeli citizens
Oh yeah, I mean,
So,
well, and
prior
just
to
think
some
of
of
it.
the stuff that ended up happening.
right, and I just want to cycle around to the idea that was a real genocide. Okay, a real genocide is what the Germans did. Okay, to say
Oh, of
what's
course.
happening in Gaza as a genocide, that the Israelis are doing the equivalent of, because remember the Nazis had Jew hunting teams when they went around and they found every Jew that they could find and they killed them. That is not what's happening in Gaza. Okay, uh, so you could definitely talk about, Gage, to answer your question about what's happening. You don't want to say there's a war crime or something like that. Talk is talk and action is action. There is clearly not a genocide happening in Gaza right now. In fact, the one genocide that is happening in Gaza is the murder by people in Gaza of the LGBT population. Now, that is happening, and those people are being hunted down. And that's why some members of the LGBT community get asylum in Israel.
Yep.
Not as many as I'd like, not as easy for them to do it as I want, but Israel is very security conscious. And, look, there's no question they have a bias against the Palestinian population, but they do give asylum. Okay. And so,
They've traditionally, and I've been keeping check on this particularly because Tel Aviv has the largest LGBT population in the Middle East, that they do have the largest Arab LGBT population openly
wow.
queer in Tel Aviv as well. And yeah, there are definitely some issues.
That wouldn't go
I
over
want
well.
to
That wouldn't go over
I
well directly in the Arab states, would it?
well,
Oh no.
somebody ended up posting this, is that Israel's final solution is to be able to have pride parades in Tehran.
I love it. That'd be
Um
great.
um and I want to be able to touch on your stuff with genocide. Dan, this is the difficulty that I end up coming at it with. Um Prior to a lot of the data work that I was doing, I have coursework and college work in anthropology. Like, one of the things that we do talk on and touch on is genocide. But there's a time period in which people end up debating and talking about it to be able to go and figure out if something is a genocide. It's not done during the genocide, it's generally done afterwards. It takes
yeah,
time and effort and study to be able to look at what happened between the populations.
Interesting.
I, at this point, think what Israel is doing a lot of the time is very wrong. There are definitely war crimes being done. Netanyahu, again, has been really unpopular. He's been protested against by his own people. There are former hostages that have gotten um out against what he has been doing. about some of the policies that he's had. And Tom, I would never want to be able to talk with Adam Bates. He has stepped over from what he deems as anti-Zionism into anti-Semitism very, very frequently. And this is a problem that I've seen on the libertarian side of people unwilling to critique their anti-Semitism when it's done veiled in the guise of anti-Zionism.
Well, it's a very simple thing. If you say that what's happening right now is a genocide, you are 100% anti-Semitic because you are applying a different standard to Israel than you are to anybody else, to any other genocide that's happened in the world. You
Right.
made this definition just like the word anti-Semitism, right? The word anti-Semitism is actually a created word. It means Jew hate. Okay. It was meant to provide a scientific explanation as to why it's okay to hate Jews. And, it was invented by a German scientist who said, there's a reason why. It's not that we're hateful people. There are all sorts of scientific reasons why the Jews are bad for our society, why they are undermining everything that we do. And so they created anti Semitism as a way to say, we have to specifically attack the Jews on this.
And
And
again,
so,
I
go
don't
ahead, Joe.
I don't understand the blame game. I don't understand how. I mean, what
I,
percentage of the world population are the Jews? 1%?
yeah,
0.2%.
much less than
0.3?
1%.
I mean,
Yeah.
how can such a small population of people be this horrid for the whole world? It
Well,
makes
I
no
mean,
sense.
we've seen, you know, chapter and verse of, and in fact, we're seeing it in the United States now. We're seeing people going after marginalized communities, and it's very easy to target a marginalized community, especially when you think that they have some kind of advantage of you. So we're seeing the the
They're
United States
bullies.
going after trans people
Yeah.
because Kamala Harris said something about giving trans people surgeries in jail. Like we've seen this whole rise of assholes that are now infested in our government,
In
saying,
power.
to go after individual communities, and they're smaller communities. They don't have a whole lot of power, and say what you want to about whether the Jews are super connected. I mean, we got
Oh,
Jews
yeah, I
on this
think they are.
broadcast, and they've controlled all of the media tonight. So
Secretly, we have been controlling media.
I mean, I think they're a great. They've got each other's backs,
well, you have to, if you're in a targeted minority group, you got to have your backs. You got to have
Well,
each other's back.
I drove into.
We
Go ahead.
2
Ari.
months ago, almost 2 months ago, we ended up having the training for my synagogue, the safety training. And I am one of the people who is disabled inside of it. And we had to make a snap judgment whether or not, if a active shooter came to the synagogue that I go to, whether or not there were going to be enough people for me as a wheelchair user to take me outside so that I wouldn't get shot, or if I would have to be able to settle in place,
Let
to
me ask
shelter
you.
in place.
Let me ask you this, if I may, Ari. So, it wasn't long ago. I was driving down to Pittsburgh, and I cut through Squirrel Hill. There
Yeah.
was a wonderful 1-year period where I got to be the financial manager, the controller of a publication called the Jewish Chronicle. Now, I'm a Christian. They just hired me.
I know them. I know them well.
Well, they're
Like sometimes
great.
I agree with them. Sometimes I want to be able to yell and scream
Well,
at them.
and that's cool. But the neat thing is they publish. And I ended up watching their board gut the whole thing just to save some costs, which we were already doing. But my point is I was driving through there to kind of drive past that old stomping ground. I first passed a different synagogue, and it was the
Whole life.
Tree of Life
Tree of Life, yeah.
Yep.
synagogue. And everybody knows the horrific mass shooting that they had to endure that was very, very targeted several years ago. And
Yeah, I was in Pittsburgh when it happened. I was 3
really,
blocks
were
away.
you? Where were
Yeah.
you?
I was at the Pamela's that was there in Squirrel Hill before.
Oh my gosh, the breakfast pancake place. Really?
Yes. Yeah,
How
I
cool.
was I was
Small
I
world.
was there. I was there. I was only a few blocks away from that. I was at Soldiers and Sailors
Oh,
I was at
right on
Soldiers and
Fifth
Sailors
Avenue.
for
My
it, but
heart
yeah.
goes out to you. My heart goes out
Yeah.
to you. Well, again, I think this gets back to the whole thing, how they're targeted, and the hate that is the flames that are fanned. There is no logic to it. But
Well,
there's so many
there
groups,
actually
and so
is.
many people looking for a boogeyman.
No, but there actually is, because so I mean the first people to call the first person to call out the Jews for being assholes is God in the Old Testament. Okay, in Exodus.
We're going to a little higher level here,
Well,
Dave.
Yeah, like, but historically
He's allowed.
speaking,
there's an important phrase. So all throughout the Old Testament, Exodus, Deuteronomy, Jews are referred to as a stiff-necked people because they will not bow their heads to any authority other than their God.
I
They
love
won't
that.
bow their heads.
and even then,
Yeah, yeah. Jews
It's the
are
first liberty movement.
well, and so Jews have consistently been in that space. Okay, everywhere you go throughout history, you look at what happened with the Inquisition. Okay, the Inquisition happens
Nobody
because
expected it.
nobody expected it. Put him in the comfy chair. um, nobody saw the Spanish Inquisition, but that or look back at what happened when Jews are being persecuted in Russia. It's because they don't accept the communist rule, or the Dreyfus affair, right? All these incidences of anti-Semitism come because Jews have traditionally been advocates for liberty and anti-authoritarians. So
Yes.
every
not
authoritarian
all of them, but a
government,
lot.
not every authoritarian government, knows the Jews are going to oppose them.
Yeah.
And they know that there's been this however long conspiracy, right? Going back to the original blood libel, right? Of saying that Jews did this terrible thing. And so it's easy to kill two birds with one stone. A, to rally people against Jews because Jews did this, they own the banks, they control the media, they killed Jesus, they're committing genocide, all of these blood libel things. But then they're also such a small minority that it's easy to say, we got to get these people who are your money lenders, who are your landlords, who are all these things. And so that's why anti-Semitism, Jew hate, has been persistent since the beginning.
I mean, it's again, I will point out that it is because they are a strong minority wherever they're at, and that's why they get targeted. And it not right, absolutely not right. Um, let's pivot here and talk about Benjamin Netanyahu. Um, I think I think we're all kind of in agreement that he's not
Gotta
a
go.
good actor.
Gotta go.
He's got to go.
He
I mean,
is.
like I think he's prolonging
Fan
a
in the
lot of this
flames.
stuff.
I have
Uh,
gotten called a self-hating Jew for saying that Benjamin Netanyahu is a bad person.
Yeah,
He deserves to be able to go in front of criminal court.
Yes,
but
He
Ari,
deserves to be able to be tried
Ari,
because he's not a good person. He's
Ari,
not a good person.
Ari, you can't help it that you're right.
I know.
Just say.
well,
I
I
am
mean,
right.
let's take a look at Netanyahu. Netanyahu right now is under,
Criminal indictment.
he's three different criminal
Yep.
indictments,
Yes.
all influence peddling, bribery, that type of stuff. The
He
only
is-
thing that's
he's
preventing him from going to court and preventing him from being convicted right now is the fact that he is the prime minister and he's in a war cabinet. There can't be an election right now because he's in a war cabinet. So
Well,
there's an
no,
incentive.
there definitely can't. There isn't going to be an election, no matter what, in 2026.
Uh, they
No
say
matter
that
what,
they might have one in October.
right. So they might be able to have one in October, but no matter what, it's kind of like England, where you have a time limit that no matter what, there has to be an election after 6 years.
But I mean, this government isn't 6
there are
years old.
limits to what he can do, and particularly his party right now, Likud, is very unpopular.
Well,
Is
and they're in a minority
extremely
government.
unpopular.
They're in a
Yes, they
minority
are a
government
minority
status.
government,
Yeah.
and there have been many people calling for him to not just, end the war, but to step down.
Right. And the
Because
thing is, it cycles back to the part that, that's what I want. That is 100% what I want. But it can't happen until the war is ended. And the fastest way for the war to end is the unconditional surrender of Hamas. Everybody who is not calling for that is prolonging the war. They
Oh,
are
yeah,
also Netanyahu's allies. Netanyahu couldn't be happier about the people who are encouraging Hamas to not surrender by saying, oh, there needs to be a ceasefire.
Well, I also think that Netanyahu would be more than happy to gin up some other, like I think he was very happy to gin up the conflict with Iran,
Yeah.
to prolong this idea of a war cabinet.
the 12-day war in which Iran now
Well,
is
I mean,
accusing
honestly,
Israel of using gin to be able to go and attack them.
yeah, I mean, honestly, when I look at going back, after the attack and seeing, the Iranian response of firing missiles after telling everyone that, where they're going to fire them, that whole thing was set up by Linda McMahon. I'm completely convinced that WWE produced that war
They did
because
it
that was
this
so
week on the
telegraphed.
Sunday Super Slam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I definitely agree with you that Netanyahu will do what he can to stay in power.
Yeah.
Manufacture crises, in many ways, much like American politicians do,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Gary Johnson said that we have been kept in the state of perpetual war and unending debt to justify excesses by American government. So Netanyahu is in that space.
Yeah,
However,
absolutely.
the one thing that is constant is that if you get three Jews together to talk about politics, you're going to get five opinions. Okay,
At a minimum.
Yeah.
You got
at a
7 here,
minimum.
so
Exactly. And so
Dan,
if we take away,
that makes for a great bar joke.
It does. Oh, listen.
Maybe it should
when
just
we-
be me and Dan debating one of these days.
when we start telling Jewish jokes, which I think is at 8:50.
Yeah, it's coming soon.
I got some doozies lined up for us. But
Okay.
but fundamentally,
Some Hamish humor.
yeah, I do want to answer some of the questions that are in here.
Yeah, let's
So
do it.
Yannick asked,
Yes,
if,
so would I.
two really good questions. Is the Israeli government leaning into fascism? And what happens if Hamas does surrender? So the first thing I will say is that by any of our definitions, and we are all people in the liberty movement, Israel is a very draconian state. Private gun ownership is illegal. Although
everyone's conscripted, so
military service is required, and when you are doing your military service, you are required to carry your service weapon, which is an M16, with you at all times. So if you're in Israel, it's not uncommon to see both men and women walking around the markets with M16s over their back.
Superwoman did it.
Yeah, exactly. Gal Gadot did it. Gal Gadot. I keep saying Gadot, but it's Gadot. Right. But part of that is, and there's a lot of political turmoil in Israel because of that, where there are a lot of Israeli citizens who wish that Israeli taxes weren't so high. They wish that they didn't have, you want to talk about crazy tariffs. Israel's got some crazy tariffs. In fact, I was just talking to a friend who lives in Israel. They can't get an iPhone right now, okay, because it takes like.
It's not a bad thing.
Well, it is what it is, but it's very difficult to get things in Israel, to get modern things in Israel. And so Israel's in this place where.
Why is that?
Part of it is that it's difficult to get shipments into Israel. Most airlines don't fly there, and especially now with the war going on.
The Mediterranean Sea?
So you can bring in stuff via shipping, but it's whatever is the reason, it's not a large enough market to really justify the long range, large scale shipping that would say, if you're going to sell iPhones in Europe, you're putting them in on a giant boat into Rotterdam, and you're going to serve all of Europe there.
I know that because we do a lot of mailing and with my agency we mail out, and I know that Israel right now is on a list of places they won't do certain deliveries to because of the war. It kind of goes back and forth. They definitely put it on during the Iran attacks. They took it off for a little bit, but they're they kind of go back and forth on what they are willing to
Right.
deliver into the country.
So I can answer Craig's question, but if somebody else wants to take a shot at it, David, you want to take a shot at it?
Where's Craig's question? Oh, wait a minute. Question is someone
Just
address the
how
actual
the
state of
actual
issue.
state of Israel
Oh,
came
how it
about.
came about. So, yeah, after the war, the diaspora. Well, I mean, there's always been a Jewish community in Israel. There
Yes,
was it was the British Palestine Mandate at the time of the war. As they get close to 1947, the British start making noise about heading out, and the way that British do, they decide to just kind of cut and run.
Fuck up everything.
Yeah, I mean, the entire colonial experience of Britain is to just cut and run and play people off each other. I mean, again, this was the divide and conquer what played a huge part in what happened in British Palestine Mandate.
Right. And I
And
don't want to sugarcoat either. There are Jews engaged in terrorist activities at this point in time to
oh yeah,
drive the British out of the
Haganah.
Middle East. Right. The Stern Gang. You look
Yes.
up the bombing of the King David Hotel.
Yep.
Israel is not, those people, they're not angels.
Yeah, the Brits were like, yeah, we don't want this, and decided to cut out. And
So
the day before the Brits are supposed to leave, the Israelis declare the state of Israel. They're like, yep, the state of Israel's here.
Well,
And then the Arabs are like,
there is a
fuck that.
UN definition, right? The
so
Israelis didn't declare it. The UN defined it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, the UN did define it.
so
Right.
but
so you're
the Arabs
saying
were like, no.
Right.
And
so
then we
you're
have
saying the Israelis are not a perfect people. So you're saying they're much like we Americans.
Yeah, except more stiff-necked.
Well,
Yeah.
let's talk. But let's talk about that war in 1947,
Yeah.
48. In that, early on, the Israelis were actually looking at you know help from wherever they could get it. So, like they were, the United States kind of stayed out of it, and they ended up getting tanks from Czechoslovakia
Yep.
to help with
And
the early defense
airplanes, the
and
early
airplanes.
Israeli Air
Yeah.
Force.
It
They
really
got a lot
wasn't
of
until
surplus World War II equipment.
it really wasn't until the Suez Crisis where the Brits were starting to talk about taking over the Suez area after the Egyptians nationalized it. The United States really got more involved in the region and really stopped the Brits from taking the Suez at that point.
The Brits and the French.
Yeah, the Brits and the French. So the
Yeah,
the U.S. get involved a little bit later than the early starting of the.
yeah. I might go back a little bit further and talk
Sure.
about Balfour.
Well, of course, the Balfour is
The Balfour Declaration
fucks
in, I
everything
think,
up.
1917, the
Yep.
British commit themselves to a Jewish state in Israel, in the Middle East. Okay, and this is at the end of World War I, where the Ottomans, who have controlled all of the Middle East, the Ottomans are done. T.E. Lawrence and the British and Bedouin irregulars go all the way. They capture Damascus.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So the
But then
Ottomans are done in the
the
area.
Balfour Declaration is kind of it is the thing that really kind of fucks up the Middle East.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
they just they throw lines in the middle of the desert. This is French influence. This is British influence, and
Yeah, exactly.
we're dealing with
Right.
we're dealing with the ghosts of the Balfour Declaration.
Right. But
Yes.
that is the part where there is a commitment. And, people have been talking about Zionism. Zionism is the idea that there should be a Jewish homeland. And for a long time, most Jews thought it was going to be in Argentina. There was a
Really?
lot
I
of
didn't know
work
that.
done, yep,
Oh, yeah.
to make it happen.
They actually
Uh,
talked about New Mexico as well.
yeah, exactly. A lot of different places looked at. But, in 1917, when Winston Churchill, who was the author of the Balfour Declaration, says the British government is committed to a Jewish homeland in Israel, that's it. That's when all the other talk ended and said, okay, it's going to happen in Israel. Jeremy's right. They were talking about doing it in Uganda. I mean,
Mhm.
the Jews are traditionally a wandering people. There's
I mean, the
whatever
Been a
happened, but
diaspora
diaspora.
for
right,
we've been a diaspora for a very long time.
right.
Wandering
And
is kind of an
so
understatement.
So that's when the iteration happened. That's when the beginning of saying what's going to happen happened. If hindsight is in this case, I think it was Elizabeth who said earlier, hindsight is 2020. I think that looking at everything, doing it again, there's all sorts of reasons why it might make more sense to have done it somewhere else. But if we worry about that shit, we're never going to solve any of the stuff that's happening now. I
It's
think
funny
we
though.
have to
Funny
accept.
though,
Go ahead.
Dan. It's cool, Dan, to think about it. Imagine they had established the Jewish state on some little section of Argentina, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Mm.
there's no Palestinians right nearby. And I wonder if all of this conflict would have ever occurred.
Oh, for sure it would have.
Yes.
Because what people
Yes.
realize is the Palestinians fight other peoples besides Israel.
Okay.
So first of all, the West Bank, right, which is people always say from the river to the sea, but very few people know that river is actually the River Jordan that we're talking about, mentioned
Okay.
throughout the Bible in a whole bunch of different places. But the West Bank is the western bank of the River of Jordan.
Okay.
And it has been uh, under various people's control for various points of time. But after the British leave, right, and it's a free for all, Jordan occupies it and then annexes it. And in 1950, they declare that they control the West Bank. And they control it all the way through until 1967, till the 1967 war.
Mm.
Now, at any point in time, if the Jordanians had wanted to make a Palestinian state in the West Bank, they totally could have.
They could have.
Nobody would
Yeah.
have stopped them. And you know who would have supported them? Israel. Israel, I won't say they love Jordan at this point in time, but they have a pretty good relationship with Jordan because the Jordanians are the most reasonable at this point in time dealing with the Israelis. And in the 1967 war, now let's just talk briefly about what happens. So, 1956, Israel and France, Nasser, right, who pioneers independence from American and Soviet hegemony, declares his sort of independence and declares that he controls the Suez Canal because it's in Egypt.
Yes.
England and France don't like that. So they drop paratroopers in there and they cut a deal with Israel that says, look, we're going to occupy the Suez, but we need you to conquer the Sinai. Israel's like, well, we'll do that. So Israel conquers the entire Sinai up to the canal. Egypt complains. The UN gets involved, and eventually the US says, look, Egypt and France, what you're doing isn't fair. You guys got to stop. So Egypt and France eventually
England.
withdraw. Israel agrees to return the Sinai with one condition. They say there's this place called the Straits of Tirana that is very important strategically to Israel. If you want to sail a boat to the southern coast of Israel, you have to pass the Straits of Tirana. And they say, look, we are going to hold the Straits of Tirana unless we get guarantees that that's not going to be militarized and Egypt will never use that to blockade us from having a southern port. The UN and the US agree that if the Straits of Tirana are ever militarized, that will be a casus belli, a cause for war, militarizing the Straits of Tirana. So in 1967, Egypt does that. They occupy and militarize the Straits of Tirana.
Wow.
Israel says, look, we're going to go to war over this. You have essentially committed an act of war against us. And the Egyptians get all the rest of their allies, Syria and Jordan, to get involved, and Iraq and Lebanon. And they all agree to do it. Now, the Jordanians aren't really interested in doing this, and King Hussein actually turns control of the Jordanian army over to an Egyptian general. The Israelis communicate, and this is very well documented, with King Hussein and say, don't do it. Don't attack us. It's going to be a big problem if you do. There's no reason for you to do it, and your losses are going to be more significant than you understand. King Hussein says, I'm sorry, I've already cut a deal with Egypt. And besides which, you guys are going to be dead relatively soon. So the Egyptian general rolls big artillery up to East Jerusalem and starts shelling into Tel Aviv, the largest city in the Middle East, not counting Cairo. Okay? So they start just lobbing artillery shells into there. So that has to end immediately. So that's when the Israeli come around from behind, occupy the West Bank, kick the Jordanians out, and say, we're never going to let you militarize this area again. We are going to control the West Bank, because when we don't control the West Bank, you can bring artillery up close enough that it can start firing artillery shells into the biggest city in Israel. So,
well, and
that's how.
Isn't that what happened 2 years ago in October?
Well, they came out of Gaza instead of the West Bank.
Yeah.
But yes, that is essentially it. But that's why Israel occupies the West Bank. In 1988, Jordan says, we don't want the West Bank back anymore. We are no longer considering it Jordanian territory. And then in 1994, when Jordan signs a peace treaty with Israel, they confirm the West Bank is not Jordanian territory. So now,
That's, I mean, for a big reason is that Jordan doesn't really like its Palestinian population.
well, I was going to get into, you want to talk about Black September?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about Black September, but I mean, it's just that throughout the Middle East, the Palestinian diaspora, which generally congregated around the borders, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, a
Egypt.
little bit in Egypt, although Sinai really kind of doesn't allow for a whole lot of migration through it. But the Palestinian cause, for a lot of governments in the Middle East, the Palestinian cause was a thing that they could use to distract their own discontented populations. That they were strong supporters of the Palestinian Authority, especially when Yasser Arafat was the chair of the Palestinian National Authority.
Yasser.
Yasser Arafat, yeah.
Right.
And he, a lot of Arab leaders used the Palestinian cause as a cause célèbre for them to show that we're doing something against the great evils of Westernism or Judaism. And since Arafat passed away, and you've seen a split between the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, which is run by is it still Mahmoud Abbas?
Abbas is, yes, still.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then whoever is running Hamas now, they kind of get killed regularly now.
Nobody's running Hamas.
But before we get there, I think we want to talk about 1970, Black September. The PLO tried to take over Jordan, and there is
Yes.
a war. And
It did not.
the Jordanians forcibly evict all the Palestinians from their homes in Jordan and make them go into, now, didn't take them all. There's still a very large Palestinian population, ethnic Palestinian population in Jordan.
Yes.
But they evicted a lot of Palestinians and moved them into the West Bank. And this is the thing, is that the Palestinians, in many ways, are looking for their own homeland. And if you were to ask me, I'd like to see them get a homeland. But none of that can happen while there is a declared state of war between Hamas and Israel and Iran and Israel.
Let me ask you this. You would like to see who get their own homeland?
I believe the Palestinians are entitled to a state.
I agree too. So my question is, they've got Gaza. Why is there no contentment with that?
Well,
It goes back pretty far. Like my dad's side of the family are Turkish Jews, Croatian and Turkish Jews. Palestinian nationalism started around the time of the breakdown of the Ottoman Empire. They've been trying to be able to get land since then. Palestinian nationalism, particularly, from its foundation, has been really incredibly trying to be able to create a state. Um, like like Turkish people, and particularly the Ottoman Turks, were very, very strongly against Palestine existing. And
Really?
the viewpoint of it has been and continues to be that
well, the Ottomans wanted to control everybody.
yes,
Right.
I mean,
But tell me,
Kurds,
they now have
Armenians.
this small sliver of land on the Mediterranean called the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
Is that not something they want?
Well, at this point, kind of hard to put your roots down in the Gaza Strip when I would say, every building in that square strip of land is pretty much rubble.
I
Well,
understand.
I will tell you,
a lot of
that is very much not true. So my country, my company, Real Report, has a reporter shooting video in Gaza. Gaza is not rubble. It's just not. I can send you some good videos that have
All right.
GPS coordinates on them, and you look at them, and you'll see, oh yeah, there are plenty of 25-story buildings still standing in Gaza.
the
In
larger issue
untouched.
the larger issue at hand is we get our news filtered from Gaza through only one space, and that's Hamas. Hamas controls what comes in and comes out in terms of journalism. There's not a free flow of journalistic freedoms there for people to report from. You get it primarily from one, maybe two sources, as opposed to some of the things that are coming from Israel, where they have been, and I will say, albeit with some hesitation, they've been allowing press to come in to be able to see things. Most of the stuff that's getting reported here in the West is controlled through the lens of Hamas. The reports that we get on starvation are controlled through the media agency that's controlled by Hamas. The information that we get on the casualty numbers is controlled through Hamas and has been greatly contested by not just Israel, but other nations as well. A lot of it has to do with what they're willing to be able to give over to news media. And a lot of the Western news media is more than willing to be able to parrot exactly what Hamas gives them.
I mean, yeah and no. I mean, I think we can all agree that when it comes to war, the truth is usually the first casualty.
Yeah.
Yes.
The do I think Israel has a freer press than Gaza? Absolutely. But I don't think that the
It's not.
information coming out of Gaza is strictly just Hamas generated.
No, for sure. And for sure, there is massive destruction in Gaza. But Gaza has not been flattened.
Well,
So
Yeah,
let's
here's my
talk
parallel.
let's talk about Donald Trump's plan to move Gaza.
Before we do, Dave, if I may interrupt. Okay, so what Dan is saying about Gaza, there's some leveling and there's some not. I think about Dresden, Germany, after World War II. It was
Right.
annihilated, and today it's just a beautiful city. So I guess I look at that and I say, I'm sure that Gaza, any particular part or city can be resurrected. Just a thought.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, yes, but it seems like every time that there is a rebuilding, I'll use Beirut as an example.
Mm.
Beirut has been rebuilt
Yeah.
several times over the
Yes.
last 30 years.
The
But
Paris of the Middle
it
East.
it also gets bombed the shit out of it because, Hamas, or I'm sorry, no, Hezbollah on that side, fires some rockets into Israel. And Benjamin Netanyahu loves to take any opportunity to bomb the shit out of people because then you know,
Belongs
we as
everything.
Americans understand that it boosts the poll numbers of the leaders when we go into that initial state of war.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you
Unfortunately.
know,
Can't see past that.
at some point, it becomes, do you rebuild, knowing that some knucklehead on your side that you may not have complete control over starts, shooting shit into your country and starts shooting shit into Israel, and then all of a sudden all your shit gets blown up again.
Yep.
It it
I'm
it,
with you.
it comes very hard because I've got a friend that works in refugee assistance in the all throughout the Middle East, Lebanon, Syria, and in Palestine. And it's frustrating because they'll build a school or they'll build a hospital, and then these bad actors get into the school, they get into the hospital, they get in, or some knucklehead fires a rocket into Israel, and the first thing that gets hit is the school or the hospital or the whatever. And it's frustrating because so much money that you know if you give money to one of these organizations, it's almost like you're peeing into a hurricane.
Yeah.
Um,
Good.
Well,
It's
it's interesting too.
Good
Like,
analogy.
I want to address a couple of comments. A couple of comments. So, Guy talked about the fact that Gaza is a concentration camp blocked by land, air, and sea. I just want to point out that the Gaza blockade is supported by the Palestinian Authority. So, Mahmoud Abbas also wants Gaza to be blockaded
well, because he
because
hates Hamas.
because he hates Hamas, because there are all these weapons coming in. So, as long as, right, Hamas rules Gaza and Hamas has a declared state of war against Israel, Israel's going to have that blockade. And in
But
fact, in
Israel,
2005, when Gaza was free and there was not Hamas leadership, there was no blockade. It was
there
when
was
Hamas,
not.
yeah,
But
when
there was a
Hamas took
disagreement
power.
between the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority because they weren't a huge fan of Yasser Arafat,
Absolutely.
and they kind of thumbed the scales in Gaza and showed that the Palestinian Authority was this weak organization, and all of a sudden this strong organization starts rising up in the Gaza Strip, and they take over in 2005, and they run this area brutally. I mean, there's no dispute that the leadership in Gaza was a brutal dictatorship.
Sure.
People would get dragged into if you didn't cooperate with them. I mean, it essentially was a mafia organization. They would,
Yeah.
yes, they would give people help. They would provide healthcare. They provide food. But you had to be super loyalist to the Hamas cause.
Right. And there is a
if you were gay or trans, you would get pushed off of a rooftop.
You have to get out.
exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
you had to get out.
Gotta go.
right.
You gotta
Right.
go.
And so, I don't want Gaza to be a concentration camp either. The way that we stop that is by ending the war. Okay? We end the war. Israel's not at war at Gaza anymore. Now there's all sorts of reasons to say, well, why are you blockading this place that you're not at war with? But so long as there is still a war, and it's important to talk about too, who has evicted the most Jews from Gaza? It's dominatingly the IDF. Okay? Because there were Jewish settlements in Gaza, and part of the return of Gaza to Palestinian rule, the IDF came and forcefully evicted all the Jewish settlers who had settled in Gaza. So back to Yannick's first question. If Hamas surrenders, I believe that the Palestinian Authority would take over for now. I think that probably the best thing that could happen is for an Arab state to take over. Let it be Egypt. Let it be Saudi Arabia. Let it be Jordan. Now, Egypt and Jordan don't want this because they're dealing with the problems of, like, Egypt has a real problem with the Muslim Brotherhood. which is essentially Hamas. Okay. Egypt is very fearful of a revolution in their own country should the movement that is Hamas become part of Egyptian regular life. So they don't want that. So they don't really want Gaza because they could have had Gaza when Israel gave all of the Sinai back to Egypt. They actually gave them Gaza as well. But the Egyptians didn't want that. In the same way the Jordanians gave up the West Bank. I think that the best possible solution is an independent, run by somebody else area who's going to be responsible for security. Because, look, if the Jews continue to occupy, and let's talk about that, first of all, right? Occupying a country after a war is very standard. The North occupied the South in the United States after the Civil War. The U.S. occupied Japan. How long do you think the U.S. occupied Japan, Joe? What's your guess? After World War II. How long did the U.S. occupy Japan? I'm gonna
take a
go,
stab at it.
go
I'm
on.
gonna say between 5 and 8 years.
7 years is exactly right. 1952. But so the U.S., Japan lives under military occupation by the United States for 7 years. Germany.
Was it right? Like there were still things that were happening in Japan, and particularly like Okinawa, by the American troops that were not great.
Oh,
And
absolutely
the
not.
thing about it is I understand like the transition from an occupied government that Hamas ends up controlling
Right.
to a newer government. I'm wary. I'm not so much wary, but my issue that I have with some of these other countries, particularly Arab ones, is
Yep.
that they do not see Palestinians as a legitimate thing.
So
And
we do,
So-
however, know we have a lesson in history of how to turn a former warlike country into a non-warlike country, and it's called the Marshall Plan. And
Yes.
what we do is we have Saudi Arabia, who, look, you want to argue about the right to return? Okay, Saudi Arabia could implement the right to return because they could buy all that territory back. And trust
Yeah,
me,
true.
the Jews are ready to sell. If the price is right, the Jews are ready to sell. All right, that's my first Jewish joke of the day.
All right, Dan.
There we go. We're hitting stereotypes now.
But in that
Well,
situation, Saudi Arabia could make Gaza rich. Okay, they could do what they're doing for themselves. They could make it a vacation paradise. And once Gaza became rich, they wouldn't want to fight anymore. Once a country
Yes and
becomes
no. I
rich, they
mean,
don't want to fight.
again, it's
I look at
well, I mean, it's the whole idea of why invest in a place when Benjamin Netanyahu gets a wild hair up his ass and starts throwing rockets into it. Like it's hard to invest in a place where you know 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years down the line, the shit's going to get blown up. Whether or not, I mean, again, it takes a single knucklehead at this point to fire a rocket into Israel to get a response.
Yeah, but that's where if we put it under, let's just say, Saudi control or whoever, uh, then the Saudis would have the responsibility of making for security. And in order to do that, what are they going to have to do to make sure that a single knucklehead doesn't get a missile and fires it at Israel? They're going to have to implement the same level of security that Israel's implementing. So it's better if it's done by the Saudis than if it's done by Israel.
Disarming the population, aka what essentially what the Israelis are doing. If you're not in the
I don't
military,
agree with.
I mean, it's going to be hard to do that. I mean, again, let's talk for a second about Donald Trump's plan to move out Gaza into. There's been various places. One he said Tunisia, perhaps Libya, which is its own hellscape at this point. Like that would be absolutely stupid.
If he and the current Israeli administration attempt that, I will be the first and the loudest to be able to call them out and say that it is absolutely wrong.
I mean,
Um,
you're essentially making where you're
Well,
making the mistake the United States made in reservations.
right, right. I
yes.
mean, the only person who might be a bigger asshole than Benjamin and not Yahoo is Donald Trump,
I
right?
mean, honestly, here's what I would love to have happened with the whole Iran war was we get Ayatollah Khamenei, Benjamin Netanyahu, and Donald Trump into a room. They fight to the death, and whoever emerges from the room is loaded into a rocket and fired into the sun. That would have been the most awesome solution to the whole
Right.
thing.
But I do agree that there is and Tom's point that Israel has been adding huge chunks of land to Israel proper since 1947. I mean, without question, it's true. It's always happened as the result of a war that Israel didn't start. I mean,
Well,
that is
I mean, the
actually
settlements.
Yeah.
undeniable. So the settlements, those aren't part of Israel proper. He specified Israel proper,
Hmm.
and those are not parts of Israel proper. Now, the settlements that are happening, sometimes unquestionably with the wink, wink, nudge, nudge support of Israel.
Oh,
Okay.
I think Netanyahu's all
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. On the other hand,
Netanyahu
there's
has been
also been
horrible with
times
that, but yeah.
there's also been times when Israel has very much worked against the settlers and brought them all back in.
They did that
Especially
in
in
Gaza,
Gaza.
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
they did
in
that in
Yeah,
Gaza.
Gaza.
they
Right.
have.
They
Yeah,
evicted
they have.
all of the Israelis from Gaza. Okay. And I
And I
can
remember the
certainly
controversy around that. Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah,
Terrible.
it's
You
but
get three Jews together, you get
nobody ever
private
brings
meetings.
that up.
Yeah.
Nobody ever talks about the
The
fact that
forced
that
Right.
repatriation. Yeah.
Israel has ended up doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the question fundamentally is
I'd
how do
love
we
to
get
have
a
Tom on the show.
how do we
That would
get a
be awesome.
solution? I'm sure Tom would be willing to do it. The
Yeah.
question is, how do we go forward from here? Okay. Whatever, Tom will make an argument that I think is factually incorrect. I think you can look it up and you can find out all the territory that Israel occupies was was captured in wars that Israel did not start. Tom
Although
disagrees.
they do still have the Golan Heights.
The
And didn't
Golan
they
Heights
take
is a direct
Shabbat?
result of the '67 war.
Yeah. No. What was it? Shabbat Farms is what they've taken recently.
I don't know, and I'm willing to be corrected about this, but I don't know anything about it. But Golan was definitely taken during the '67.
Yeah, 67. But
Um, in this scenario, though, going forward, Israel has given territory back. We know that it can happen. It happened in Sinai, and it could have happened for the West Bank, but Jordan didn't want it.
what's
So
so what would the status East Jerusalem? East Jerusalem.
East Jerusalem is now part of Israel
Yeah.
because when they
Yes.
conquered the West Bank, that included that.
So if they create a Palestinian state out of the West Bank, would East Jerusalem be the capital of Palestinian state?
It's a fascinating question. One of the interesting things to talk about is sort of what's happened with the Temple on the Mount,
Yep.
which is a holy site
Yep.
for Israel for Jews,
For Arabs as well.
Muslims and
Arabs,
Christians.
and Christians.
Yeah.
Right. Clearly,
They greatly restrict Jewish entrance into that area.
yeah, absolutely.
Like,
The Orthodox are furious about the way that they're being treated. The Muslims are furious about the way they're being treated. I don't think the Christians are really complaining about it too much, but fundamentally,
the Christians are more like caught in the middle of all of this.
yeah. But I mean, they have a holy site there, but nobody's blocking them because
No,
everybody wants
nobody
the
is
Christians
blocking
to be
them.
on their side. Um, Fundamentally, I don't know what happens with East Jerusalem. I think that probably the best thing to talk about. I don't see Israel giving it back. because it's part of the issue. And if that's a sticking point, endless war. Let's stop fucking around and talking about peace. We'll just keep fighting because Israel's willing to do that.
But that's the ever-ending non-solution.
Well,
Yes.
what we know is that there can't be any other solution until the war stops. Egypt stopped their war. They got back Sinai. Jordan stopped their war. They got back what they wanted. The Palestinians, Hamas, can stop their war. And there's an argument that exactly what David says, that there's always some knucklehead with a missile who wants to fire it. Those people are generally supported by Iran, or for a long time, Iraq. Saddam Hussein would pay the family of suicide bombers to reward them for the martyrdom of their child. It was a way, if you were a young person who wanted to support your family, to make money. And that's terrible, but it's terrible all the way around.
Yeah.
So are there always going to be people who will be funding attacks against Israel? Maybe. But what's the solution for that? The solution is either the Israelis are going to be responsible for their own security, because
And they always have been.
well, no, they haven't. That's where things always went wrong, is that in other countries, Jews said, we will abide by the laws of the state, and we will let other people maintain law and order. After the Holocaust, after the enormous depopulation of Jews in the world, Jews said, all right, there's going to be one place where we're not going to compromise on the security of Jews, and that place is going to be Israel. Bitch about it all you want, complain, we will fight to the death.
And they have.
And so Tom, I'm sorry you missed the earlier parts where we talked about the Straits of Tirana, Casus Belli, and the Suez.
Maybe,
It's okay. I mean, it's the nature of things.
I'm just going to throw this out there, Dave.
Yep.
Maybe at this point, just to lighten things up, maybe we go to the quiz.
Yeah, we can. I mean, we're running.
Can I end on one slightly interesting note about particularly from my viewpoint of trans Israeli history.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know, Tel Aviv was one of the first cities that Jews started to be able to return to, even prior to the establishment of Israel. So in Israel, in British Mandate Palestine, there was actually a very large neighborhood of properties and people from the Jewish diaspora that ended up immigrating back to what would then become Israel.
Well, and Tel Aviv doesn't exist before that. There is no city. There is nothing in the space where Tel Aviv is before 1909. It is the historic port of Jaffa, but nobody lives there.
So there is a trans man. Some would call him intersex, but he identified as something opposite that was from his birth certificate. His name is Carl Baer. Carl Baer actually ends up being the first gender affirming surgery recorded medically in the entirety of the world in 1907. He ends up actually fleeing from Germany, had bought land in Tel Aviv with his two partners. So not only is he Jewish and trans, he's also polyamorous. And today is recorded still on his tombstone in his given his chosen Hebrew masculine name. Like they've recorded it, they kept it. From what I understand, he ended up actually having the full burial rights of a Jewish man.
Right.
And that is one of the things that is I wish people would keep this in mind that there are challenges and there are things that are going on in Israel that are not necessarily great, but in terms of some of the minority communities that are there, from the Iranian Jews, Ethiopian Jews, transgender and LGBT, other LGBT individuals, and not just Jews, but Arabs, that it does present an opportunity. It's not perfect there, but no country is ever perfect. And yet we have this focus on what is
Tony?
kind of happening there. But
Yeah.
I'm going to get off of my high horse.
No.
That's my little bit of trans Jewish polyamorous history.
So,
well stated.
actu-
Well stated.
so the question about capitalism. You know what? That's actually that will be a good topic for next week.
I agree, and I just want to point out that
That's
Tony, when he says PA, he means Pennsylvania, not
Yeah, not
Palestinian
Palestinian.
Authority. All
Hi,
right.
Tony.
Yes.
Let's do
All
the
right.
quiz.
You want to do the quiz? All right. So 10 questions. Where are we at? There we go. There's the share screen. All right. There we go. Let me get rid of the chat real quick. All right. 10 questions from this week. The quiz was on Friday. So, and thank you, Yannick, for joining us tonight. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks to everybody who showed up. I think we
yeah,
had a
absolutely.
really good, respectful
questions.
conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had discussions about Palestine and Israel that have engendered some rage before. So it was great to have a good conversation today. Yeah, July 25th. So everything that happened this weekend is not on this quiz. All right. Oh, context clues. We got Shohei Ohtani. I believe he just got married.
To that dog.
I'm surprised you don't have,
Washington Commanders.
I'm really surprised you don't have Paul Scanes up there.
Oh, Pittsburgh's finest.
US,
Yes.
the last one was the U.S. Marines.
Go
Yeah,
Bucks.
US Marines.
Go Bucks.
Question number 1. Which city may soon become the first modern capital in the world to run completely out of water? Kabul, Afghanistan, Mexico City, Mexico, Baghdad, Iraq, or Sana'a, Yemen? My guess it's probably Sana'a.
I
was
would
gonna
agree.
guess
It's
Yemen.
about capacity. I mean, Baghdad has a major
No.
river running through it.
Yeah.
Two major rivers, really.
Yes.
I'm going with Yemen. I'm going with Yemen.
I also agree, Yemen.
Yeah, Yemen. We don't have our good luck person here.
Oh, and it was wrong. It was Kabul, which is,
Wow.
probably the second best.
That would have been my second guess as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Tony got it right.
Maybe we should follow Tony.
Go Tony. Go Tony.
Yeah, where is Brandy?
I'll tell you what, that makes me feel like an ass.
Brandy?
The sailors say Brandy. You're a fine girl. All right. Question number 2. Why is President Trump threatening to restrict a stadium deal for the Washington Commanders in D.C.? He said he can make a better deal with Maryland. He doesn't like the football team's name. He said a new stadium would create more traffic jams. Probably true. And he probably wants he wants to personally choose the stadium's the team's quarterback.
Or because he's on the Epstein list.
He's on the Epstein list.
Can't we choose
He's on the Epstein list, but it's the name. It was the name.
No. I think we need to
Brady got it. Brady, hey Brady.
Go with E because Trump's an idiot, and that covers all bases.
Yeah, but
he's on the Epstein list.
Yes,
and he's on the Epstein list. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. But the owner responded and said he was going to change the name back to the pedophiles. So
Trump's profile on the side. I mean, they should call it the Orange Skins and put Trump's profile on it.
Hilarious.
Or the spray
so maybe they could get a deal with a spray tan facility.
Yeah. Question number 3. How much money did the federal government spend to deploy 700 Marines and 4,000 California National Guard members to Los Angeles in response to anti-ICE protests? 13.4 million, 134 million, 1.45 million, or 14.5 million.
I'm going 14.5.
I always
It
hate
was.
stupid
I think it was
questions like this.
14.5.
I agree. Let's go 14.5 because
All right.
134 seems like too much.
Yeah. Oh, but it
God
is
damn it!
good. Jesus.
It's
Yes!
Well,
always
I mean, did they put them up at the Ritz Carlton?
You know,
You
there's
know,
only one place to stay, and that's the Hilton.
right.
Well,
Yeah.
it's even worse than that because like they ended up having basically nothing to do. Like there was nothing that they did there. They were inordinately bored, and now he has to go back to the Marines again
But
if he wants to be able to pull something like this to
I
be
you
able
know
to.
But
the
you've got
whole
them at the
Doge
Hilton.
thing.
You have them at the Hilton. You have the free breakfast. You have the table dancers.
Oh no, they
He's
were
got them covered.
This wasn't the Hilton. This was the Ritz. This was, I mean, they got
Yeah.
deluxe accommodations in Los Angeles.
Crazy
Probably-
money having been spent.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. For how many? 700, so 4,700 people.
4,700, yeah.
4,700 people.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous. Question number 4. House Republicans want to name the Kennedy Center's Opera House after which public figure? More stupidity. Melania Trump, Ivanka Trump, Ann Coulter, or Laura Ingraham.
It's Melania. I'm
Really?
being firm on this
I-
one.
I-
I've been following the Kennedy Center. It's Melania.
Wow.
I have to vote for more stupidity, knowing I'm wrong.
Melania is insane.
But it is Melania. GOP lawmakers included language that would designate the Opera House as the First Lady Melania Trump Opera House in an amendment to a spending bill for the Interior Department.
It's
You know,
an
there's
opera
got to
house.
be an accountability for people who do this sort of self-aggrandizing with public funds. They just had an instance of this.
Did you say
at
it's an
the-
opera house, Dave?
Yes,
Yes.
it's an opera house.
Ah!
You know,
Ah,
Adrian
throwing it
Malgon
out
just
there.
did this out at
it's
the.
not. It's not necessarily an opera house. It is a performing venue, but it's not technically
It's one of the
classified as an opera house.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the performing venues there at the
I
Kennedy
can't
Center.
take
Right,
it
Kennedy Center has a
seriously if
lot
it's
of different
Trump.
places.
Cannot take it seriously if it's Trump.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's the whole monument to. I mean, it's the essentially what Republicans are doing right now is trying to do what every dictator wants, is to have their posters all over the place, to have
Just
statues put up of them,
redefine culture.
to yeah, I mean,
and that's why I sang. I want you to know.
All
yeah,
right.
it just I don't think anybody should get
I
anything
went
named
I
after
know
them
you
while they're
loved it.
alive.
You don't have to tell me, Dave. I know you loved it.
Yeah.
I went to the Kennedy Center when I was in college. Like when I was out in Fairfax, I used to go all the time, like with one of my partners, and like we would go to the shows. We would go to the free shows. One of my partners played during the holiday seasons. I went for Sakura Matsuri, Cherry Blossom Festival. Like I love that space, and I have to agree with what I think it's Kennedy's grandson. Like one of the Kennedys ended up doing a really long write up on this that it completely denigrates 110% of what
Are they going to do nude
his
shows
relative
there?
did.
Are they going to do nude shows there for Melania?
I mean, there has been nudity there before, but
a little porn action.
I saw Hamilton the third time I saw it there with Jess Mears. Good
Nice.
time.
Jess.
All right, question number 5. Why did Ford recall nearly 700,000 SUVs this week? Airbags may deploy unexpectedly. That'd be fun. Vehicles' computer systems can be hacked. Fuel injection may cause a fire, or brakes are pretty squeaky.
I have no idea.
I have no idea either.
I have no idea.
really-
It could be any one of those. It's probably has been one of those at some point.
I'm voting for B, number 2.
I wish that one of our trucker friends
With
was
the
here.
hacking?
I mean, that was the problem. That was the problem with the Kia was the ability to hack it too easily.
0 day
That's what I'm voting for,
exploits.
Dave.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Randy says fuel injector. Oh, and so does Tony.
All right, let's
So
do it.
let's do a fuel injector. They haven't,
Right.
Brandy hasn't guided us wrong in the past.
No, Brandy got one wrong last week, but
No, we didn't
She
get one
didn't.
wrong
Oh, Brandy
last
did
week.
get.
didn't we?
No,
We didn't get.
we
We
were
didn't
10
get
for
a
10
single.
last
We
week.
didn't get a single one wrong last
Last
week.
2 weeks. We've
Maybe I'm
blown it this
mistaking
week.
me and Brandy. Maybe I got one wrong
Yeah,
last
you
week.
got one wrong last week.
Okay.
You got one wrong last week.
So I'm
That's
looking at this.
correct.
How does an electric vehicle have a fuel injector that's problematic?
I don't
Serious.
think these are electric.
These are not
Yeah,
electric.
it's just regular SUVs.
Sounded
So
like they were for a
owners
minute.
of the Bronco Sport and Escape vehicles should bring in their vehicles because the fuel injector may crack and leak, potentially causing a fire, a barbecue,
Wow,
as it were.
not good.
All
No,
right,
what does Ford
question.
stand? What does Ford
This one I
stand
know.
for?
Found on road dead. Fucked over rebuilt Dodge. There are so many good Ford acronyms out there. Question number 6: which world leader is suing right-wing podcaster Candace Owens for defamation? Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, French President Emmanuel Macron, or British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. I haven't heard this story either.
Oh, it's
I think it
definitely
was
Wow.
Macron.
It is Macron.
Is it
It is
Macron?
Macron.
Yeah.
Um,
They said that
Ari,
she used to be
Ari,
a Macron cookie.
Ari, I love the way you said that, so I'll just say, ho, 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 ho.
Uh-huh.
Yes, in March,
Oui,
right-wing
oui.
broadcaster revived a
Revived.
conspiracy theory about France's first lady, Brigitte Macron. Isn't she saying something about her being a man or something like that?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah, she's
Sorry.
saying that she's a trans woman, but yeah.
Question number 7: researchers have finally decoded an error in the 12th century epic, the Song of Wade, or Wade. I don't know this one. Apparently,
Wade.
the hero
Not
doesn't
Wade
battle
Wilson.
elves.
He's also Deadpool.
Apparently the hero doesn't battle elves. What does he fight? Dragons, vampires, witches, or wolves?
No idea. But if I had to guess,
Pick one. I have no idea.
How do you convince? I mean,
I would guess wolves because
I'm gonna
it has
guess
most
wolves
letters
too,
in similar with elves.
yeah,
Well-
that could be. That could be.
because witches as like a
Tons of
thing
witches.
being written in Europe was about that time, but it wasn't necessarily really popular until like the
Until
15th
teen
century.
literature. Yeah, until teen literature. Those teen books. Yeah, I think wolves makes it sound.
Yeah, I mean England obviously has a history with the story of St. George of fighting dragons, but yeah, exactly.
Yep.
See, it's a transcription error. It's exactly what we said.
W-N-O-Y. Yeah. So, have you ever seen like a British sign where it says "Ye Old Mary"? Did you know that "ye" is like a dip? The Y is actually a diphthong. If you ever seen Icelandic, they've got
Yes.
a D with a line through it.
No.
Essentially, essentially that letter is TH. So people think that it says "ye," but it's really "the."
Yes.
Interesting.
It's an anachronism. It's an anachronism. Yeah, it didn't exist.
Yeah.
It really got popularized in like the early to the mid to the late 19th century.
That's fascinating.
Question number 8: which two actors are reuniting for a new body switching movie? Nicolas Cage and John Travolta, Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan, Steve Martin, Lily Tomlin, or Jason Bateman and Ryan Reynolds?
I know this.
It's the
Tony
Parent Trap one.
Help
Not
me,
the Parent Trap
Dan.
one.
Help me.
Freakier Friday, Lilo.
Yeah, it was Freakier Friday.
Let me just say that Jamie Lee Curtis has gone out of her way to be as nice a possible person in the last time. And, Lilo she's been through some hard times.
Is she doing better though?
She does seem to be doing better now. And
That's
Jamie
good.
Curtis has really been helping her a lot on that path. And
Good.
so, hats off to both of them. Lilo has a National Verizon commercial now. And,
Nice.
this movie's coming out.
Yeah,
Let's
I mean,
hope, knock on wood, that she's
all
really
these
got-
celebrities that have had issues like Lindsay Lohan or Britney Spears, The hope is that they they
Ozzy.
get back on track. Yeah, Ozzy. Well, rest in peace,
have you
Ozzy.
seen Pam Anderson in Naked Gun? She's phenomenal.
Yeah,
No.
no, like,
Wait,
she'll
in the
look
Naked
beautiful
Gun?
with or
Oh,
without makeup.
You
Yeah.
mean Priscilla
she's
Presley?
incredible.
Do you mean Priscilla Presley?
No,
No,
no, Pamela
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 Anderson.
Anderson
Is in
Pamela
the Naked
Anderson is
Gun?
going to be in the new
The
Oh,
Naked
Liam
Gun.
in the
Neeson
new
version.
Naked Gun. Gotcha,
Yeah, the
gotcha,
Liam
She's
gotcha,
Neeson.
phenomenal.
gotcha.
Phenomenal.
Question
Good.
number 9: Which famous film prop just sold at auction for $14.75 million? The sled from Citizen Kane, the ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz, the DeLorean from Back to the Future, or Darth Vader's lightsaber from Star Wars?
I gotta
No,
say the
it's
ruby
the sled.
slippers.
No, the ruby slippers are actually at the Smithsonian. They own,
Randy says sled.
How do
pairs
you
of them.
know all this, Ari? That's amazing.
I am yes,
My guess is that it's
You're
going to be the
amazing.
lightsaber.
because I volunteered at the Smithsonian during college.
It's
All
so
right,
small, and
so
so
it's
for
gotta be
$14, yeah,
one of the monkeys from Wizard of Oz then.
I, yeah.
No, it's
I,
the
Nope.
I think it's the sled. I think it's the
Is
sled.
it sled
oh,
from
I think it's the
Citizen Kane?
Well,
I
lightsaber.
see it
it is.
black and white too. So Citizen Kane right now,
Yeah,
black and
that's a
white.
good point. All right, let's go.
There it is,
Nice job.
Rosebud. Rosebud, the famed wooden sled at the heart of Orson Welles' classic 1941 movie. Nice. Final question.
Gavin
Los Angeles
McLeod.
Dodgers star Shohei Ohtani is co-writing a new children's book. What is it about? Growing up
I
in
think we got some
Japan.
context clues here.
Can
Growing
you
up in Japan, his passion for swimming, the importance of sleep, or Decoy, his baseball fetching dog.
His
can
dog.
you
I think it's
name
the
the
dog.
whole
His dog.
question again?
Los Angeles Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani is co-writing a new children's book. What is it about?
Hmm.
It's
Right.
either growing up in Japan or Decoy. And Brandy says Decoy.
I think it's the
It's
dog too.
it's Decoy.
The picture at the beginning showed him holding his dog.
Oh,
All right,
that's
we'll go
true.
with decoy.
Yeah. All right. So Decoy. There's Decoy. That's a good-looking dog right there.
It is. How do we do?
We got
Show
8 out of
it.
10. Not bad. I mean, we had
started
2
weak.
straight weeks of 10 in a 10
Yeah.
out of 10. This week,
You know, I want
falling
to say
back a
one
little
thing real quick.
Not bad. This is a good
Eight,
solid.
eight
This
is
is a good
not
solid
bad.
B.
Eight,
Talk about
eight
his
gets
passion
you
for swimming.
eight gets you the college numbers you want.
Yeah. So I just want to say they're talking about his passion for swimming. Among all the deaths last week was Malcolm Jamal Warner, who drowned. It
Yeah.
is shocking to me how many people don't know how to swim. And guys, it's an easy thing to do.
Let me ask
Team.
you, Dan, when did you
Yes.
learn to swim?
I was very lucky that I learned to swim as a child.
When did I learn to swim, Dan?
As a child.
No, I learned to swim when I was a junior in college. I had no idea. I took a swimming class to complete some of my credits because I knew I needed to really know how to fucking swim. And
You.
and a great instructor taught us. I was actually floating the first day, and by the end of the course, I was swimming. It's never too late.
Yeah.
I learned how to swim when we moved. I mean, I got in the water and I floated around, but really actually swimming. We were moving to New Mexico, so I was like 13,
Mhm.
and we were at a Campgrounds of America just outside of West Memphis, Arkansas.
Okay.
And there was a really pretty girl at the pool, and I wanted to impress her. And I learned.
That'll do
I
it every
figured it
time.
out. I figured it out, and
That'll
I
do
got
it
the
every
motion
time,
down.
Dave.
So I just
And
want to say, two of the greatest universities in the United States, MIT and Howard, both require you pass the swimming test in order to graduate.
Now, it's interesting you
approve.
say that. That was
Yeah.
not a requirement at my college at all, Dan. But when
Right.
my dad attended there, 40 years before, it was a requirement.
Interesting.
So I decided to take the course, and it's also when I met my wife Sally, And 40 years later, we fell in love again. And even though that's failed, it's a wonderful love story. And I learned how to swim.
There you go.
I'm
I
glad
was
to hear
right,
it.
4 years
well-
old. I was 4 years old.
Yeah.
My teachers in my preschool hated me. All of the kids were over in the one side of the pool. We were in a little Montessori school when I was a kid. That they were in the kiddie end of the pool, and I decided that in all my wisdom, I was going to dive down 13 feet.
Well, there you go.
Wow, Ari, at the Montessori school.
Yes.
That's skills right there.
That.
All right. Well,
that's-
so fantastic show this week. Thanks everyone for joining us. I really appreciate it. Craig, Brandy, Tony. We had Janice and all the
Tom.
usuals here today. Tom, thank you so much for joining us. Next week we'll be talking. We'll do a socialism versus capitalism show. So
All right.
yes.
I know most of us are economic capitalists, but
I will play the part of
I'll have
socialism.
some. I'll have
I
some.
I can go and talk because I'm the anarchist here. I'm definitely I
not-
love markets, but I have some critiques. I
Yeah, oh,
definitely
yeah.
have some critiques.
Right.
You
And
know,
I think that I
let's
will
face
play
it,
us
folks.
out.
Let's
will play
face
us
it,
out.
folks. You're used to Dave. You're used to Dan. They are the stable of this organization. But Ari and I will take it from here next week. Yes, we will.
There we go.
So to honor Tony's request, I'm going to play us out with a little Chuck Mangione flugelhorn. Good night, everybody.
Let's do
Bye,
it.
everybody.
Bam, 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 bam. You should stop while I'm doing this, Dave.
It's like
Bam, bam,
classic
bam,
That is
all over
embarrassing.
again. It's like
bam, bam,
classic.
bam, bam.